U.S. Ambassador's shocking warning to Zambia, corruption crisis exposed. When a foreign ambassador speaks publicly about corruption, it is never accidental. This week, the United States Ambassador to Zambia made remarks that have set off intense debate about governance, accountability, and Zambia's global reputation. Was this a diplomatic concern? Or a carefully worded warning? Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of the InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. Well, what a week it's been across the African continent. From economic shifts to political tremors, the news cycle never seems to slow down. But today, we're bringing you a story that has sent shockwaves through the corridors of power in Lusaka. Picture this: a packed conference room. Cameras flashing. Journalists leaning forward in their seats. And at the podium, the United States Ambassador to Zambia, delivering words that would make even the most seasoned politician shift uncomfortably. This wasn't your typical diplomatic courtesy call. This was a warning, direct, unflinching, and impossible to ignore. What happens when one of Zambia's most powerful international allies publicly calls out the rot festering within government institutions? When whispers of corruption transform into official condemnation from the very nation that has poured millions into Zambian development? When the diplomatic gloves come off, and the language shifts from carefully crafted pleasantries to blunt accusations? How deep does this corruption crisis run? Which officials are trembling behind closed doors tonight? And most critically, what does this mean for ordinary Zambians who've watched their national resources vanish while hospitals lack medicine and schools crumble? The United States has drawn a line in the sand. The question now is, will Zambia step over it, or will this be the catalyst for long overdue accountability? Factual foundation, background and timeline. The revelation came to light during what was scheduled as a routine press briefing at the American Embassy in Lusaka. But routine it was not. On what appeared to be a standard Tuesday morning, Ambassador Michael Gonzalez took to the microphone with prepared remarks that had been carefully coordinated with the State Department in Washington. The setting was formal. The ambassador's conference room, adorned with both American and Zambian flags, a symbol of the partnership that has defined bilateral relations for decades. The timing was deliberate. For months, international watchdog organizations and Zambian civil society groups had been sounding alarms about escalating corruption within key government ministries. Reports of inflated contracts, ghost workers draining public payrolls, and unexplained wealth accumulation among mid-level officials had become impossible to ignore. Transparency International's latest Corruption Perceptions Index had shown Zambia sliding backwards, dropping 15 places in just 2 years. But the catalyst for this unprecedented diplomatic intervention came 3 weeks prior. A leaked audit report from the Office of the Auditor General revealed staggering misappropriation of funds allocated for rural healthcare infrastructure, approximately $47 million that seemingly evaporated into thin air. Clinics that existed only on paper. Medical equipment purchased at quadruple market rates. Contractors with no construction experience awarded multi-million-dollar tenders. The American government, which had partnered with Zambia on several health initiatives through USAID, discovered that some of their joint-funded projects had been compromised. American taxpayer money, intended to save Zambian lives, had instead lined the pockets of corrupt officials. This discovery prompted urgent consultations between Washington and Lusaka. Behind-the-scenes diplomatic channels were exhausted. Quiet meetings were held. Warnings were issued privately. And when those private warnings went unheeded, Ambassador Gonzalez made the decision to go public. Direct evidence, quotes and testimony. Standing before a room full of journalists, Ambassador Gonzalez didn't mince words. His statement began with diplomatic courtesy but quickly shifted into something far more pointed. The United States values its partnership with Zambia, he began, his tone measured but firm. We have stood shoulder to shoulder with the Zambian people through economic reforms, democratic transitions, and development challenges. But today, I must address an issue that threatens to undermine everything we've built together. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. Corruption is not a victimless crime. It is theft from the Zambian people. It is stolen medicine from hospital shelves. It is teachers who don't show up to classrooms because they were never hired in the first place, they're ghost workers collecting salaries. It is roads that collapse after one rainy season because contractors cut corners and pocketed the difference. A journalist from the Lusaka Times raised her hand, asking whether the ambassador was suggesting that the Zambian government was complicit in systemic corruption. "I'm not here to make blanket accusations," Gonzalez responded, his expression serious. "But I am here to say this. When audit reports reveal massive discrepancies, and when those reports are shelved without consequence, that is complicity. When whistleblowers face intimidation rather than protection, that is complicity. When contracts are awarded through opaque processes to politically connected firms, that is complicity." Another reporter pressed further, "Mr. Ambassador, what specifically prompted this public statement? Is the United States threatening to cut aid to Zambia?" Gonzalez leaned forward slightly. "Look, we're not threatening anyone. We're being honest partners. Recently, we discovered that funds from a USAID-supported health program were diverted. Money meant to build maternal health clinics in Western Province never reached its destination. The clinics don't exist. When we raised this with our counterparts in government, we were told it would be investigated. That was 8 weeks ago. We've received nothing but silence." He continued, his voice taking on an edge, "So let me be crystal clear, the United States will not continue to invest in programs where we cannot account for how funds are being spent. Our taxpayers deserve better. The Zambian people deserve better." When asked about specific officials implicated in corruption, the ambassador walked a careful line, "I'm not going to name individuals from this podium. That's for Zambian authorities to investigate and prosecute. But I will say that credible allegations exist at multiple levels of government, and those allegations deserve serious investigation by independent bodies." A Zambian state broadcaster asked whether this represented interference in Zambian internal affairs. "Absolutely not," Gonzalez responded firmly. "Zambia is a sovereign nation. But sovereignty comes with responsibility. And when American resources are involved, we have every right, actually, we have an obligation, to demand transparency and accountability. This isn't about imposing American values. Fighting corruption is a universal value, enshrined in Zambia's own constitution." The most powerful moment came when the ambassador addressed the Zambian people directly. "To the ordinary Zambians watching this, you are not powerless. Your voices matter. Demand better from your leaders. Support the journalists who investigate these issues. Protect the civil society organizations fighting for transparency. Because this is your country, your resources, your future." Deeper analysis. The ambassador's warning has ignited a firestorm of reactions across Zambia's political landscape, revealing fault lines that run deep within the nation's governance structures. From the ruling party came swift defensiveness. The Minister of Information released a statement within hours, describing the ambassador's remarks as unfortunate and based on incomplete information. The statement insisted that Zambia's anti-corruption mechanisms were functioning effectively and that investigations into alleged irregularities were ongoing. However, notably absent from the statement was any specific refutation of the ambassador's claims or any timeline for addressing the missing healthcare funds. Opposition parties, predictably, seized the moment. The United Party for National Development's spokesperson called the situation a national embarrassment and demanded immediate parliamentary hearings. "When even our international partners are forced to publicly rebuke our government's handling of corruption, we have reached a crisis point," the statement read. But beyond the political theater, legal and procedural questions loom large. Zambia's Anti-Corruption Commission, established with much fanfare in recent years, has faced persistent criticism for its perceived lack of independence. Several prominent lawyers and governance experts have questioned whether the commission has the autonomy necessary to investigate high-level officials without political interference. Dr. Sarah Mwamba, a political science professor at the University of Zambia, offered a sobering assessment in a television interview. "The problem isn't just individual corrupt actors. The problem is systemic. We have weak oversight institutions, limited press freedom to investigate without fear of reprisal, and a culture of impunity where politically connected individuals rarely face consequences. International development analysts worry about broader implications for Zambia's economic recovery. The country is already navigating a delicate debt restructuring process, and donor confidence is critical. If major bilateral partners like the United States begin withholding or redirecting aid due to corruption concerns, Zambia's fiscal challenges could deepen dramatically. There's also a humanitarian dimension that cannot be overlooked. The specific case of the missing maternal health clinic funds highlights how corruption literally costs lives. Zambia's maternal mortality rates remain stubbornly high, particularly in rural areas. Those clinics weren't luxuries. They were lifelines for women facing complicated pregnancies with no access to emergency care. Yet amidst the clear condemnation, ambiguities remain. How widespread is the corruption the ambassador referenced? Is this limited to specific ministries or individuals, or does it represent endemic failure across government? And perhaps most critically, will this public pressure actually catalyze reform, or will it simply drive corrupt practices further underground? Some Zambian commentators have raised uncomfortable questions about the timing and motives behind the ambassador's statement. Is this genuine concern for Zambian welfare, or is it leverage, a way to extract policy concessions from the Zambian government on unrelated matters? While there's no evidence to suggest ulterior motives, the question reflects deeper anxieties about foreign influence and sovereignty that resonate in post-colonial African contexts. What's undeniable is that the United States has now publicly tied its continued development partnership to concrete anti-corruption action. This raises the stakes enormously. The Zambian government must now choose between meaningful reform and risking the loss of a crucial international partner. And that's where things stand tonight, viewers. This story is far from over. In fact, in many ways, it's just beginning. The ambassador has thrown down the gauntlet. The question now is what happens next? Will we see arrests? Will those missing millions be recovered? Will the clinics that were promised finally be built? We'll be watching closely, and you can be sure we'll bring you updates as this situation develops. But I want to hear from you. What do you think about the ambassador's warning? Is this the wake-up call Zambia needs, or is it overreach from a foreign power? Do you believe meaningful anti-corruption reforms are possible, or is the rot too deep? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about this. Thank you so much for watching today's edition of InspirAfrica Official. Your engagement, your views, your comments, your shares, that's what keeps us going and allows us to continue bringing you these important stories from across the continent. We'll be back tomorrow with more news, more analysis, and more stories that matter to Africa and to you. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay inspired. This is Nakash, signing off.